Welcome in. John here, engineer with over 10 years of experience and the lead maintainer of the open source Latterly.io. That's an educational platform that will help you learn to code and land your first to next programming role, as well as a professional network. So hundreds of engineers on the Discord, you can come hang out. And today, we're fixing a problem with Latterly. So I got this email from Stripe. This is a screenshot of it. It goes beyond this, but this is the relevant portion. And basically, I was getting errors over here. So I went and checked out the dashboard as they mentioned. And I also looked on my own logs. And this is the error that I'm seeing. No user ID found in the subscription metadata. So this is a cancel request. So a Stripe request to cancel a subscription. And it is repeatedly failing. So Stripe is calling the endpoint over and over. So I thought, I dug into this particular subscription, I looked at the metadata, and this is a subscription that doesn't exist. And so I'm erroring in this case. But what should I do? So I go over to ChatGPT and I use it as a rubber duck. And a thought that crosses my mind is, well, in the case that the subscription doesn't exist, from Stripe's point of view, that could be satisfactory. So I asked ChatGPT, is it a good practice to reply 200 to a Stripe webhook when it requests deletion of a subscription for a user that I can't find in my system? And it basically says, yes, they should be idempotent. So we need to update this functionality. When might this occur? In theory, I guess the person could just click request a bunch of times. But I think what happened here is that I manually deleted a subscription because someone messaged me. And then maybe they also clicked it in the website as well. So accounting for cases such as a manual cancellation, we will reply 200 if that subscription is successfully canceled or not found. As opposed to the current state where if you try to cancel a subscription that doesn't exist, you get an error. Okay, so some steps that I've already taken. I made the GitHub issue. I started a pull request and I copied an example payload to this cancel payload.json. And then we may use a Python script for automated verification, but what would be better than that is an automated test that runs and catches possible regressions in the future. So I think we'll introduce a test runner, so there's no unit tests in Latterly today. So we made it this far, made it 3 years or something, but I think it's about time we start getting some testing in there. We'll start with unit tests. It may or may not work in this case because we're dealing with a webhook. We'll see how it goes. And in the future, I will eventually add integration tests. I don't think that will be necessary at the moment, but we'll see. So let me say a couple things. Why vitest instead of something else? One question here is, where should the tests go? So I like to keep my code portable and feature-oriented. And so the way that this appears from a file system structural perspective is that I like to keep my unit tests in the same folder as the component under test. But this appears not to be the recommended practice for next.js apps. So continuing to rubber duck as a micro design session with ChatGPT, it suggests that I use a dedicated directory, which is a parallel file structure pattern. This is also a very common pattern, and it turns out this is common in Next.js. Why would it be common here in particular? Because Next.js uses file-based routing, so that if I create a route.test.ts right next to my route.test, by default, Next.js will try to ship my test code to production, and I don't want that. So there's a few ways to work around that, but the one that seems idiomatic or common or normative in the broader ecosystem is to have a dedicated parallel file structure pattern. And so it suggests this _test folder, and it suggests inside of source. And then I just double-clicked. I'm thinking, well, if I want to have a parallel file structure, why be a child of source? Why not be a sibling of source? So I double-click and I ask, do we want to go source/tests or a sibling of source? And it says, good point, let's do a full parallel. So we'll have a sibling folder here. And I quite like this. If we're going to do a parallel file structure, this is pretty clean because I just have one directory basically that holds my tests. So it's pretty clean. Pretty happy with that. All right, and it gives some alternatives, but that's what it recommends. And then I say, here's my package.json. Look at my dependencies. Based on these dependencies, what test runner should I use? And I ask it to prioritize performance. So there are normative tools in the ecosystem which are normative. They are the most common tools, but the most common tools aren't always the best tools. And so one of the design trade-offs that we need to think through is, do I want to do what's most common, or do I want to optimize for something in particular? Am I willing to risk picking up a shiny or newer tool? And in this case, I think from a test perspective, we're pretty greenfield, so we're in a good position to go shift to the right of the distribution of newer things. I don't want to do a library that came out yesterday, but I don't want something just because it's super common when I know that a lot of those common things are basically starting to collect dust. They're rather old. And in particular, in the web development world, I'm aware of Jest being very, very common, but also notably slow and relatively complex compared to other options. So I specifically asked the language model, should I use vitest? So recently I've been using Vite, and I'm a big fan of Vite in cases where I want a UI that is encapsulated and distinct from my server. So if I'm doing like a UI Python backend combo, I love Vite in the front end. It's a really great build tool. And vitest is a test runner that follows the architectural patterns of Vite. So it's really, really fast. At least that's what I'm thinking. And so I asked the language model, and it basically says, yeah, you should do that. You should use vitest. And I'm also aware, I mean, we can check the GitHub stars or whatever, but this is a relatively mature module. This is not something that came out yesterday. Over 10,000 stars. So, and then we can compare it to Jest. So Jest is over 40,000. And you could do more advanced things like the issue to star ratio, fork to star ratio, age, other considerations. I'm not surprised that this has many more stars because it's just much older. So Jest is, you could say, more mature, or maybe more stable. But vitest is stable enough that I'm happy with it in production. And it's, at least according to the ChatGPT summary, it's up to 10 times faster with some additional benefits that simplify the complexity. For example, native support for type module, which I'm using because I'm using TypeScript. So I'm happy with this recommendation. So let's go forward with this. For Next.js with TypeScript and performance, vitest is the best choice. Okay, cool. So that gives you the background. By the way, before we dive in, Laterally Premium is going to be available at $6 for the foreseeable future. That's a reduction from $40 per month. Huge, huge reduction. So I'll keep an eye on the analytics, but my hypothesis is that this will stimulate demand. So check it out. And there's AI tools available now. And yeah, so here's like one of the AI tools. You can check it out. It works pretty well. I've gotten good feedback. As opposed to like trying to look through the blog, you can just ask it a question and it's trained on the blog and stuff. Thanks for being here. This is Fahad. Thank you for being here, Fahad. Consider throwing some likes on the video as we get started. That'll help the algorithm send it around. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome in. Okay, so here I am on my computer. I have a bunch of terminals pulled up. The server is running in this terminal. We'll basically be using two of these. And then I have a new tests one, and I haven't even installed vitest. So let's dive in. In here, I guess I'll refer to this chat, but I'll pretty shortly be closing out this chat. But I can follow the setup instructions here. So let's start with this. We'll be making a vitest.config.ts. I've got this temp folder commented out in GitHub ignore file, the git ignore file. So if you want to clone the Laterally repo and do some temp stuff, some temporary scripts, you can use that temp folder and you won't need to worry about committing anything. I may have already mentioned it, but I included a payload literal from Stripe, which will help me create the shape of my test data. And I can also use the Python script if I want to run pseudo integration tests without needing to set up the whole integration test infrastructure, which can become tedious. Kev, thanks for the follow. Okay, so here, I'll right click on the parent folder, vitest.config.ts, paste that in, get rid of these comments. It's saying we can have this setup file. I don't currently need that, but we'll keep that around in case I do before the end of the commit. If I don't need it by commit time, I'll just delete it. Okay, so we can have, and it comes with the coverage script. Love to see that. I'll probably create a basic test that just bootstraps the app. In many cases, you can get 20, 30, 40+% unit test coverage just by proving that the app bootstraps in unit test time. And it's pretty useful. Pretty easy to write, pretty useful. So that feels like low-hanging fruit. So at the risk of scope creeping myself, I will probably add that test as well. So let's get started with that. We will call this just main or app. Let's see. Let's try to be parallel with source. So I guess we'll call it app page. I don't know. App page to me feels like it's going to be a component test, which this won't be, but that's okay. I'll make app, and then I'll do page dot. What should it be? Let's ask the chat. So I'll copy this path. And let's see if it wrote me an example. So it does just use the test.ts suffix, otherwise keeping the name literal. Works for me. So I'll call this page.test.tsx. Cool, I get some IntelliSense feedback here. My cursor IDE is aware it's a test file, so I get a different icon. That's great. Satchel, or Satchel, thank you for the follow. Okay, and so at this time, I'm going to start migrating from the ChatGPT browser into the Composer so that I can eventually start fully remaining in my IDE. So I'll say create a basic app test that bootstraps the next.js application and views the main app homepage. We can do a snapshot assertion. Those are going to be, I'm going to need to maintain them, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll do a snap. I don't really want a whole snapshot. They become, you need to update them all the time, which is kind of a pain. So one thing I could do is I could just look for this text, laterally helps you. We'll look at the coverage trade-off. As long as I get a significant amount of coverage, I'm okay with that. If it says like all these other lines are untested, I may pivot into a snapshot, but for now we'll do this. And what shape of HTML is this an H2? By the way, why is it an H2? Is there an H1 on this page? Here's the H1. Oh, the H1 is going to my AI tool. That's kind of goofy, eh? All right, I won't get distracted with that. We're fine to assert on the H2, I think. Assert the page contains an H2 with the text value. Laterally helps you. Let's go for it. Good. Now I don't have aliases set up. I would be happy to set up a route alias. help me set up a route alias for the source directory. This is sometimes called a path alias as well. Okay, so it's including this alias specifically in the vitest.config. I'm fine with that. So my IDE is not happy with that. Now it's trying to alter the file under test, which I don't like. Although the agent believes it's set up correctly. Oh, this points to this already set up. Well, if that's already set up, let's use that. Okay, yeah, we don't need to set up a new alias. We can use the existing one. That is better. Resolve alias, I'll delete this block. Or rather than delete it, let me keep the agent in the loop. Prefer the existing tilde and delete the new ampersand alias. That way we're keeping the agent up to date by keeping it in the context. In theory, the agent should be able to, the cursor agent these days, it's like a new feature, is able to detect when I change something without telling it, but I don't know if I want to trust that. Here I'm going to test deleting, or let me ask, do I need a resolve alias for tilde in vitest config.ts, or will my test runs use the ts config already? So if it's duplicative, I'd rather delete it. And the agent is insistent, we do need it. Okay, so let's leave it then. Let's leave it then. So I'll stage that. Otherwise, this looks good to me. Let's run it. So now I'll go to my package.json and add some test commands. We're not quite done with our friend over here. We already copied that, so we will grab these. Add some new scripts. I'll unstage it so it becomes editable. I like to keep these in alphabetical order. There's some exceptions, but in general, I like the alphabetical order. So I'll have test, test watch, and I will change this to be test cov. Cover. Yeah, I'll just go for cov. Afghanistan, are you still working on that project from 2 days before? Yeah, not on the current stream, but stay tuned. In a future stream, I'll be working on the no-code architect toolkit that we streamed the other day. The journey is not done yet. Okay, cool. So now I will try running npm run test cov. Cannot find this dependency. Do you want to install it? Yes. Let's install it. Rerun the command. Okay. That failed. No problem. So environment variables. Attempted to access a server-side environment variable. Okay, so it seems our test setup may not be complying with the app router. So I want to make sure that the agent is aware of my package versions. So I'll say I'm using the app router in next.js and my dependencies are attached. Update the test to resolve the complaint. Colon, shift enter, control shift V to paste that text literal. Welcome in. If you don't mind, what are you working on? I don't mind at all. I did mention it at the top of the stream. So the streams are recorded to YouTube. Link is in the bio and you can see the full stream. But basically, the Stripe webhook, can I show you the error? The Stripe webhook is erroring when someone tries to cancel a subscription. And so I want to make it idempotent, and then I want to set up tests to catch it eagerly in the future so that we don't have a regression. D, welcome in, D. What is the best way to learn how to code in high school? Do two things, D. One, social network, and two, build projects. That's all you need to worry about for now. You can start your social networking by visiting latterly.io in the bio, join the Discord for free. Hundreds of engineers on there. If you run into an issue, we can give you help with programming, feedback on your portfolio, just general chat, memes, all of the above. Glad to see you here. Okay, so let's try to run this again. And I still get a failure, but it's a different failure. React is not defined. That's pretty crucial. I think the agent can help me out with this. Just importing React. Maybe that's enough. Let's see. Cool. So with one unit test, you can see all these hundreds because basically it loaded successfully into memory. That's basically all we're checking. And we get to, what is that? Yeah, like 38, almost 40% coverage with one little test here. Let's delete the unused TS expect error server component. Let's delete that. What's your favorite programming language and why? That would be JavaScript because it's the one with the most jobs, or it's the easiest to get into. Python has more jobs, but they're scattered across different career paths. When you dissect it into web development, it's a lower number. So if you go to Latterly, there's a step-by-step checklist that teaches you to learn to code, project-based curriculum. It'll walk you through 4 projects, standard projects that I recommend. 3 of them are standard, and the 4th is like a capstone unique to you. I think it's a great portfolio piece. And then after that, I would love you to learn Python as a second language. I think Python is a fantastic second language, but I don't think it's a good way into learning to code because the visual feedback that you get from web development is huge. Keto says, I've been learning about JavaScript for a while. I'm starting to learn Node. Perfect. So I would say along the path of the 4 standard, you're probably around item 3, where you get into server-side coding. And once you understand Node, picking up Python is a pretty straightforward next step because it's a server-side language. So if you can get your head around Node, that would be a great time to get into Python. Okay. So this looks good to me. So test init, or I'll just say test app page. Test app page. Thanks for the follow, y'all. Okay, so now we want to go test the nasty webhook. So we're going into our directory here, and I want to make it parallel to the structure of the code under test. So source app API. Okay, so we have test app. We're going to make a directory here called API. Test app API. Yeah, I'm not using that WebSocket folder. Let's delete that folder. Test app API, child folder name is webhooks and then Stripe. API folder webhooks and a folder called Stripe. And you can see we're doing a pretty targeted test here. So there's a lot of stuff I'm not doing, and focus is important. Don't try to boil the ocean. So this will be route.test.ts. We got that IntelliSense with a color orange IDE feedback registering that this will be a test. Very good. So I want to start by testing the existing code, and I want that to pass, and then we'll come fix it. Now add unit tests for the route.ts file. How much coding is knowing from knowledge, and how much is looked up? Oh, I don't know. That's hard to calculate, isn't it? Let's say 50-50. How about that? So I'm going to say I'm using vitest. Should I still install Mocha types? Looks like the agent is still going, so let's not disturb it while it's rocking and rolling. We brought in describe from vitest. Perfect. So we don't want the Mocha types. Look at all this work the agent is doing for me. I love it. One of the cool things I'll be able to do with the agent is ask it to review my temp JSON literal and abstract a test JSON with only the properties that I care about. So the Stripe payload is really long, but I don't need all of those values because I don't inspect all of them for my tests. So I can declare a partial object, which will be much smaller, and that makes it more readable if it's all relevant to the developer. You can see it's starting to create this Stripe event. It's already detecting the types. So I may not need that JSON payload at all. Okay, looks like it's ready to test. I'll get rid of an extraneous import, and then I'll sort the remaining imports. Okay, it's bringing in my Prisma types appropriately, mocking things that are unimportant. Wonderful. And here it's created a mock event for me, and it's already typed. Great job, Claude Sonnet agent. Keto says, are you self-taught? Yes. So I have a PhD in economics. I have a background in econ, and I taught myself to code a little over 10 years ago. Used Code Academy, and now we're over 40% on the branch coverage, under 40% on the functional coverage. I'm surprised by that. Usually the function coverage is higher than branch. Line coverage is still really low. I wonder why that is. A bunch of configuration files that we're getting 0 on, but it's 0 of 0. That's fine. I'm actually really happy with this result so far. Okay, so we are passing. So this will be test Stripe webhook. Tests will also help inform your agent. User says, what are you creating right now with what language as well? So we're using TS, that is TypeScript. So this is JavaScript with types. Types are really, really good for humans, for safety, and for language models because they will be able to understand the schema. And you can see what it's done here. It's created me a whole mock event because it's aware that I'm using the Stripe event schema. Are we using Jest? Mehdi, great question. No, we're using vitest. Over 10 times faster, or up to 10 times faster. B cells, thanks for the follow. Ronanyi, nice to see you live. Thank you, thank you. People get overwhelmed to learn new things every day. How do you deal with that? The answer is prioritization. That's a great question. You should prioritize fiercely and you should say no often. All of the things that you can do. Most of them you shouldn't do. Think about your week. Most of the things you do this week, you should not do them today. It's not even possible. It's not even if you wanted to, you can't do everything that you do this week today. Similarly, you can't learn everything. So given that you can't learn everything, the question becomes, what should you learn? And the answer to that is a prioritization question. I like to work backwards from what employers value because I like to optimize for my career acceleration. So the Laterally curriculum, if you go to laterally.io, link is in the bio, you can sign up for free. And the steps that it provides are a prioritized list, and it's prioritized with respect to career acceleration, overall lifetime earnings. From the software engineering career, and I think web development is a great path inward. How do I learn the AI stuff as a web dev? So you need to know your fundamentals very well, and then you add a language model. And now you're into AI engineering. Congratulations. If you would like to dig deeper, you can understand the internals of the language model, and you can get into machine learning engineering, MLE role. And you can start to deal with tools like PyTorch. You need to be well versed in Python before you do that. So the 3-step process, if you want to get into AI, would be start with web development, learn to integrate a language model as a consumer, and then explore internals of the models and build your own model. And that will include Python in step 3. Jen, thanks for the follow. Kiki, am I saying that right? Welcome in. Okay. So what have we got so far? So far, we're happy with this route test. Now, do we have a test on the cancellation event? We have a subscription deleted event. Here we go. So I'm talking to the language model. Is it already aware of the route? I don't know. It's not included in the context. So I'll bring in the route. And I will say now, whoa, I just deleted it. My fault. Let me bring that back in here. Let me actually clear my whole working context. Delete that all, drag this in. Shift, enter, shift, enter. Now I would like to alter the code under test. Specifically, in the subscription delete logic, I would like to make the endpoint idempotent. Currently, if a subscription is deleted, this works. But if the same subscription is deleted multiple times, subsequent calls result in an error. Instead, I would like them to respond with a 200 success code and log attempted to delete a subscription that was not found. Implement similar logic when the user is not found. Make sure to log the subscription ID and the user ID in the log message. Then update tests and assert that the log is observed as well. That should take it a couple minutes. Tina, what's up, Tina? Hello from Hawaii. Keto says, do you offer mentorship? Yes, I do. Feel free to DM me, or you can join the Discord and message me on Discord. Is that Visual Studio Code? No, it is not. It is Cursor, which is a fork of VS Code, but it has an AI agent that's really, really useful built in. So I recommend the Pro version. It costs $20 a month. Highly recommend it. What software is this? The software that we are using is called Cursor. Cursor.com, Cursor IDE, the AI code editor. By the way, on my YouTube channel, link is in the bio, you can see a crash course introduction to web development where I teach you how to develop using Cursor. So this video right here, web development, AI coding. So check that out. Miguel, thank you for the follow. Casey, thank you for the follow. How long have you been a software engineer? About 11 years. So I'm a staff software engineer at a fintech. Fintech unicorn. Ooh, it's a unicorn. Isn't that cool? Okay, so we've significantly altered the code here. Let's make sure we're careful with what's going on. So previously we throw an error if the user ID is not found. Now we want to just log it. But we're still returning an error. So this is not what I want. I'll accept the changes, but then I want to go back and forth a bit with Cursor. Shift enter. I'll do 3 lines, which is the markdown syntax for a divider. The above code is not what I want. If a Stripe webhook request is made, I would like to send a 200 success response. The log should also, well, we can't include a user ID. This is a checkout completed case. I didn't want to edit this at all, actually. Right. Okay, so I'll say revert any. I'll simply say revert any changes to this event and other cases except the delete case. Staff engineer and using the wrong HTTP response codes. Say more. Why is it the wrong code? I think you recently joined the chat. I don't think you saw the standard practice to tell a webhook 200 and the idempotent case when a deletion is already resolved. What is your YouTube channel name again? Well, the link is in the bio. And it's just called Ladderly. So let's see if I Google YouTube Ladderly, like you're climbing a ladder. Yep, #1 result right there. Couple thousand. I think it's respectable, but still a small channel, so you can support a small channel. All right. So it's reverted some things. This is a little bit better. Let's see what it did over here. So here we're in the deleted case. If I scroll further, good. So it followed instruction. It's only changing the deleted case now. No user ID found in subscription metadata for this. This is still not quite what I want, although it's better. This isn't quite what I want. I would like to respond with a 200 success code to Stripe because it will tell them that the subscription has been deleted. The log is correct. We should still log the user is not found, and note the subscription ID. And I think that's being done correctly, yeah. So we're just responding received true, and that's what I want. Attempted to delete a subscription that was not found. We make an appropriate log to the server, and then we tell the client received true. This is what I expect. So I'll stage the code under test. This looks good to me. Haven't looked at the test yet. Let's go ahead and run it. We'll look at the code while that runs. Oh, it already passed. Super fast. Love that developer experience. Okay, so tests are passing. Even though it's passing, I still want to review the change so that we don't get a false pass. Clearing mocks, that looks good. Expect the spy to have been called. And here we can see we're spying on the log. Successfully upgraded the subscription. It notes the ID and the level of subscription. Successfully downgraded. Good. We have an item potency key. Attempted to delete a subscription that was not found. User ID. This looks exactly like how I want. Okay, so I'll commit this and I'll say feature idempotent webhook. Now we're going to do something fun. We're going to leave TypeScript completely and go to Python. This will be an extremely independent test. So here's temp test webhook. I'll say let's now construct an independent integration test using Python to call the localhost Stripe webhook. I have a real cancel payload. Here, which we can use. Do you think roadmap.sh is a good start? You can do worse, but you can do better. Laterally is better. Laterally is better. So here's the first problem with roadmap.sh. It's not a roadmap. It doesn't tell you where to start. It gives you like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It gives you 21 entry points. These are not all good entry points. You won't be starting with engineering manager, for instance. It doesn't solve the question like, where should I start? It's a roadmap, but it doesn't have a starting point. Like, should you start with data analyst? Should you start with DevOps? These are not all good starting points. So laterally gives you a unified starting point. So I think that's a really, really big reason that laterally is better. Now, let's say you're smart enough to pick full stack, which is the best place to start. Here's the second problem with roadmap. It tells you a bunch of things that you don't need. Okay, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, love it. NPM is over here, that's weird. Why are you learning NPM after JavaScript? Maybe, we'll let it pass. Here's a concern that I have. Git is down here. Git is down here. How many days have gone by before you're learning Git? With the laterally introduction, you're starting your GitHub portfolio on day 1. It gives you an introduction to Git within 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes, you start building a public profile. So if you go the laterally way, you're all the way down to this node by minute 15. And there's no need to concern yourself about checkpoint external packages. So I think the ordering is a bit wrong there. Tailwind, love it. React, love it. How do you use React? So it gives you this, it wants you to learn this for React. You just don't need it all. It's overwhelming. It's not that any of this is wrong. And then what are the green checkboxes and the purple checkboxes? So you won't need any of these actually. You can just use context. MobX is green. Does green mean required? This is not required. It's not even a good practice actually. Panda CSS, what? No. Maybe green's not the best path. Maybe purple is the best path. Well, why is React Router better than next.js? It's not. It's not optimized for landing you a job. So those are some of the reasons I'm not crazy about roadmap.sh. On the other hand, if you learn all this shit, you're going to do well. So you can do a lot worse. But you can also do better. It's a lack of focus and it's mediocre prioritization. Those same keys that I mentioned earlier are so crucial. It does a really mediocre job. So can you get a lot of jobs without having a degree? You can. There's so many asterisks on that. But the answer is yes, it is possible. Getting a degree is a fantastic idea. I don't discourage you from getting a degree. About 10% of programmers don't have a degree in the US. Another question here will be, are you from the US or not? Right? Different countries will have different economic returns on investment to various activities. Getting a degree is a great idea, but then what degree? So with as little as an associate's degree, you're already significantly improving your odds over the 10% that have no college experience at all. Yep, in Kansas. You should absolutely at least enroll in a community college and get an associate's. Maybe you're hard on cash. I don't know what the background behind that question is, but if you're hard on cash, consider doing this. Consider going to community college, get an associate's, get your job, get like a basic job at maybe low paying, 50, 60, 70K. And then your employer will help pay for your 4-year degree so that you can get a 4-year degree essentially free. It's a great return on investment. So you don't need to do that as a blocker before you get your job, but I would still encourage you to do it. Stripe webhook secret. Make sure it matches my local environment. I guess we'll have to find out. Okay. Jen says, why go for the degree? Because return on investment. All right, let me show you this. When I say those words, I feel like you don't understand what I mean. It's a 2-year effort that can earn you $100,000. Is that a good investment? What cash do you have that you're investing in the stock market? You would need to have like $1 million in the stock market to make an equivalent return. So Stack Overflow Developer Survey. I don't know if 2024 will have it. They don't poll on education every year. But okay, educational attainment. Let's go take a look. Okay, so here you go. Here's the data. Professional developers. We got 6% that have nothing higher than high school. Okay, 6%. So earlier it was asked, can you get a lot of jobs without a degree? Well, there are hundreds of thousands of jobs available in the US for software engineers. 6% of that is a lot of jobs. 6% of that is a lot of jobs. But you will have to do a ton of work. They're extremely competitive because there is a low barrier to entry to those jobs. So there is a large ratio of applications to available jobs. So there's huge competition in the easy jobs. You can see it's already abnormal. So 6% is like a very small share of the developer population. So it's possible. In fact, it's not just possible, it's predictable. But you need to ask the question behind the scenes, like what sorts of jobs are these people getting? They're getting lower pay jobs, worse work-life balance, slower career acceleration over the lifetime of their career, okay? Just getting some college bumps you up over 10%, and then getting the associate's degree is another 3%. The some college is tricky because in the eyes of the employer, someone who is in the junior year of college is actually very often preferred to someone who has a completed associate's degree. Does that make sense? So some college is a mixed group of some associates and some four-year degree. So it's an ambiguous signal. So we know that some college is a good thing, but really I would say go get that associate's degree because it's a clear signal. And now you're getting, like you're at the 20% mark, okay? But you can see the majority of engineers will have a bachelor's or master's degree. Too Fast, Too Furious says, sup, bro, what's up? So the majority of engineers will have a degree. And that means if you're targeting a typical job with typical earnings, six-figure earnings, you want to have typical qualifications. Otherwise, you just need to have compensating effort. It's still possible. It's just harder and harder and harder. Do you see? But you can see where the protocol that I suggested earlier, where you get the associates, get a job, then get your employer to pay for the bachelor's and get your employer even to pay for the master's. So you can get a master's for free. And now you are one of the most educated engineers and you did it on a fantastically low, maybe even zero out of pocket. Of course, it's possible you go zero out of pocket for the bachelor's if you can get scholarships, right? So a lot of this will be personal to you. If you were to go to college, which college would it be? How much would you have to pay and so on? I worked at Walmart years ago. Walmart these days, unless they canceled it, you can go to college for $1 a day. You can get a 4-year degree for $1 a day. The return on investment goes crazy. Keto says, I have a bachelor's degree in media arts. Do you think it needs to be computer science? It doesn't need to be computer science. A minority of engineers have a computer science degree. It's less than half. You need a degree. You don't even need a degree. It's just strongly encouraged. You worked at Walmart as a suite? No, they don't pay enough. I worked at Walmart when I was in community college as first a cashier and then a customer service agent. You don't need a CS degree. CS degree is a great option, but any degree, even a business degree, the most common, by some measures, the easiest to obtain, and it still has a great return on investment. Do you think it's worth going back and taking computer science? No, I do not. If you already have a 4-year degree, try to get a CS master's instead of getting a second bachelor's. A second bachelor's has low return. It has low return unless you're in a weird situation where you can get like a great scholarship or something like that. Typically, you're going to have better return from going for your master's instead of going for a secondary bachelor's. Great questions, chat. Thanks for being here. Hey, if this is giving you some value, throw some likes on the video. They pay $150K. I have an interview. Would you say it's worth it? I don't know your background, buddy. I mean, a lot of people would be happy with $150K. So if it works for you, it works for me. I can tell you from where I'm at, that would be like cutting my pay in half. And there's other considerations besides the pay, right? You need to think about work-life balance, opportunity for growth. You need to think about, are they asking on-site or are they allowing hybrid or remote? How about benefits? Lots and lots of things that are important and they carry different value to different people. Like I'm married and my wife has great health coverage. So I care less if the employer has good health coverage. You see how the value proposition is different? 2 years experience, I'm fairly new. Look, I mean, it seems decent with that one data point. It seems decent with that one data point. What has been your career path? Where did you start? So I was a political consultant in DC, and then I switched into programming. I started with front-end development. Then I did Visual Basic, which is really weird. But I was able to become a team lead within 1 year by getting that niche skill. Then I went back to web development as a team lead in a defense contractor. Then I went to ed tech. I went to the College Board, and I was a full stack developer at the College Board. It was a lot of fun. And then I got into banking and finance. So I went to Capital One, and I was a principal engineer there. Then I went to health, and I was a principal engineer at Blue Cross. And so after trying these various industries, I figured that finance was my niche. It goes along with my degrees in economics. So I went back to, I did a brief stint at Amazon, and then I went back to the finance world, and I've been at a couple fintech unicorns, and had a great time over there. And that's where I currently am, working as a staff software engineer, mostly on the back end in Python, and doing really, really, really fun things with generative AI these days. Can you please advise if I want to learn SDET? No, I can't. I don't know if you want to learn SDET. I would need to know a lot more about you and your background and your interests and so on. I can tell you that the typical SDET earns less than the typical software engineer, but that's like a very limited analysis, right? Keto says, what was the knowledge level for each job? So that's hard to get into, but I'll tell you this. When I think about growth opportunities in terms of technical knowledge, I target 50 to 80% accomplished, so that there's a growth opportunity of 20 to 50% from a skill growth perspective. So I think at each time that I obtained a new job, I knew at least half of the stuff that I was supposed to know. So I think that's a good high-level answer to the level of knowledge for each job. Jen asked, best way to master Python? No one on earth has mastered Python. Mastery mindset is the wrong mindset. You should be adopting a sufficiency mindset. Sufficiency mindset. So with that question, what is the best way to get to sufficiency in Python? Again, this will depend on you. You may already have some background knowledge. You may have already built some projects. If you want to go from scratch, though, a bootcamp is going to be what I recommend. So you can go to ladderly.io/perks. You get 50% off Codecademy. With Codecademy, what do I like? I like the, do you want to do data science or not? That's going to be a big question. But Codecademy has a bunch of different Python offerings for various career tracks. You can check it out. And then I also like a coding bootcamp. Career Foundry is my favorite bootcamp. I don't know that they have Python, though. I think probably Springboard for Python. Let's see. Well, they have data analytics. Again, do you want to do data analytics or do you want to be a Python software engineer? So they do Python in the full stack. That's cool. Their full stack web development program I do highly recommend. It's not Python focused, but apparently it includes Python. So I'm happy to recommend Career Foundry. You get a 10% discount if you go through Ladderly, highly rated. They have a job placement guarantee. But I do think that Python is not their area of focus. So yeah, if you're wanting to do data science, you just need to go through the schools and you need to learn the prestige rule. 4.25 or better on the rating, over 400 reviews. Springboard, really good. They have a data science one I like a lot. Correlation 1, I hear good things. And they definitely have Python, but I don't know that they do software engineering, or is it like a data science focus? So that's going to be the answer. If you want to learn the skill of Python, check out Codecademy. If you want a career track, you need to work backwards from the job title rather than working forward from the skill. Does that make sense? Do you have any info about CDAO Bootcamp for SDET? Let's check them out. This will be the last one that I do in terms of looking for... yeah, these are not good, dude. Run away. This is awful. This is not a good place to go. Well, they have a job guarantee. That's crazy. So here's what I'm reading. What I'm reading is they're low quality, but they have a job guarantee. What about their price point? I'm not seeing the price point. So I don't know this bootcamp deeply, but what I would say is, from the data I have, if you go to a low quality bootcamp and you're guaranteed a job, you'll probably get a job. Or you'll get a refund. But what job will you get? I'm going to expect that it's going to be a relatively low quality job. On the other hand, in general, SDET jobs are often low quality. So it may be, all things considered, decent if you're really interested in this particular job family. And what do you have to lose? If it's an investment of several weeks, 20 weeks, I don't know. I can tell you I wouldn't do it, but I'm not crazy about being an SDET. So here's the SDET program. I think the question you want to think about is whether you're willing to risk investing 28 weeks of your time knowing that it might not work out. Knowing that it might not work out. And maybe you get a refund. I don't know if it's a partial refund, a full refund. I don't know what their guarantee includes. Read the fine print. And here's a move that I would strongly recommend in this particular ambiguous case. Try to speak to a graduate or even 2 or 3 graduates. Rapid 3642, Roadmap SH is going to be an amazing resource. I already roasted it. I guess you missed the roast, but I'll refer you to the saved YouTube stream. I'm not going to roast it again. Best JavaScript bootcamp, I recommend Career Foundry, hands down. Career Foundry. Latterly.io/perks, 10% off and a guaranteed job. That's where you want to go. Simple. Okay, good questions, chat. Should I major in accounting or CS? I would go CS. My brother, I think, wants to go accounting, so you can talk to him. I think accountants have lower job turnover, so if you hate interviewing, there's going to be accountants around. They're going to be around. We need them. But it's going to cap your potential earnings. So there's like an ambition question here. And I think they're comparable on average, but the upper edge of engineering is going to earn a lot more. So let's go accountant median pay or median salary. That's fine. So like 80 grand, I think it's going to be comparable for median software engineer median salary. Oh, never mind. It's not comparable. It's like it's like almost 100% difference, or like a more than a 50% difference. So yeah, I think accountants have lower job turnover. The employment rate, I think, is comparable. It might be even higher for accountants, but your pay is going to be limited, like significantly limited. CS seems to be all the rage. As it should be. I mean, if you look at the overall economy, forget about tech, forget about this or that industry, just the overall broad economy, AI in particular is the leading growth category, and AI engineering is a specialization of software engineering. So if you're trying to ride the wave of the rage, and I'm not sure that's a general career move, but if you're interested in that, I would go CS over accounting for that reason. How do you know what the tech market is using? That's a great question. Well, one thing you can do is trust me, bro. But the other thing you can do is you can do keyword search on job portals. Here's what's trending on Indeed. Here you go. What's trending? The other thing I would do is, so keywords basically. How do I get to the keywords here? Indeed.com top skills. I'm not so interested in these articles. I'm interested in the actual, here, let's do this. Indeed software jobs. Good, so this is the actual keyword search, right? So I'm searching software engineer, and you can just go through the job posts and just do a sample, get like 50 of the latest posts, and like look at the skills that they're using. Latterly has a prepared query for you. So if you go to Laterally blog, if you go to Article 4, the top job boards, there is a prepared query here. And you can see 97K jobs, which is larger than the 50K we saw for software engineers overall. And so what that means is that these skills collectively are in higher demand than software engineer generically. Does that make sense? So you can see there's relative demand for these skills, and this is full stack web development, basically. You can also go to True Up Jobs and do basically the same exercise. You just look through the job posts and look at the skills. So you see, some of them don't list skills, that's fine, but C++, JavaScript, Ruby, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, these are the skills that are in demand. Make sense? How is it not cooked? Here's how it's not cooked. You look at the job trend. So True Up Jobs. This is your graph. This is your graph of jobs. Now, a lot of people are really bummed because we're down from peak. That's true. But we're also up from peak. So we're 50% down from peak, but we're also 40% up from peak. So that peak from peak analysis, I think, is not very useful. What's useful is the trend line. And you can see the trend line is up and to the right. It's just moving at a slower rate. So that's how you know we're not cooked. Isn't Meta not hiring software engineers anymore? Bro, they're definitely hiring. So they had a layoff, but also layoffs are down. So you want to look at the numbers and don't read the news. The news makes everything look like everything is awful. The Meta layoffs were a tiny number, actually. Layoffs overall are down, and then Meta in particular is totally hiring. They have over 1,000 open jobs. So what they did, maybe you missed this if you were watching the news, they laid a bunch of people off, and they're immediately trying to replace them. And from Meta's perspective, what they're doing is they're ditching their low-quality performers, and they're replacing them with higher, better talent. And so that's what they are thinking will give them a return on investment. I don't have a horse in that race, but that's the reality of what they're actually doing. So Meta is definitely hiring. Is learning multiple languages good or it confuses? Yes. Yes to both. Learn them one at a time. That's the answer. Learn one language and then you can learn another language after. Do not try to learn two languages at the same time. That is a pitfall. That is going to create big problems for you. Learn one, get a job, learn another one. And then you have overall better social capital value and human capital value compared to a situation where you just stick with one language throughout your career. So in the long run, by the time you're at my years of experience, 10 plus, you should definitely know multiple languages by then. And when I say definitely, everything has pros and cons and trade-offs. So the trade-off would be if you stick with one language for 10 years, it just has lower expected pay, basically. It's not like you're going to lose your job. It's just you're limiting your job opportunities. But you'll also be a specialist in that particular skill set. So trade-offs everywhere. Okay, let's try to run this Python script. No module name Stripe, so I'm going to UV Venv. Let's make sure that didn't create a Venv from a Git perspective. Okay, good. Source Venv activate. We're going into Python world. Boom, dive in. We're in Python world. I'm going to UV add Stripe. And what other dependencies do I have in here? That might be the only one. Okay. Great, it wants me to init. Okay. I didn't want to do that. Can I undo this? Let me try to undo this. I think I can UV pip install without a knitting. Great. That looks like it worked. So now I'll UV run temp. Bam. Okay, so it didn't find the secret variable. I'm going to take this off screen and make sure my secrets are correct. Oh, we're using os-get-env. I need it to read out of my .env folder. Okay. Update the script to use .env and load that directory. Pip install virus. Let's go. So do you think AI won't affect the field? It's already affecting the field. Yes, it is. You should learn how to use AI. I'm using AI right now. Do you see how I'm using AI? When I click this blue button here, boop, I just used AI. Isn't that crazy? I've already plugged it like 3 times, but I'll plug it one more time. If you go to my YouTube channel, my introduction to web development is an AI-driven development introduction. I'm not aware of anyone else who does this, y'all. I'm giving this stuff away for free. Like, I should be charging for this stuff. So this is AI coding. AI coding. Check it out. Okay, so we'll uv pip install.env. Hope you'll follow the page, by the way. I don't expect everything to stick today. Okay, maybe I have a different name for it. Taking it off screen. Yep, it just has a different name. Striped secret key. Ooh, very secret. Very secret. Okay, so we'll replace that name. Let's try it again. Bummer. Let's ask the agent. Hey dude, did you use a wrong method? Yeah, so it's using an older API. That's fine. Soup, thank you for the follow. Rapid says, that's cool you make videos to educate people. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate your appreciation. Thank you. That's one of the things that helps motivate me, friend. Thank you for being here. Are you already following me? I hope you'll follow the page and stick around. MoShape, thank you for sharing the live. Global Sin says computer engineering or computer science. If you're asking about a college degree, I don't care. They both work. Oh, did it reverted my variable name? Computer science is a little more traditional. I personally don't care. They both work. Yeah, so it reverted my environment name change. I think I fixed that up. Oh man. All right, so the Python is out of alignment. Here I'm going to ask the agent to search the web. Search the web for the correct syntax. And I'll also UV pip list. For the correct syntax, note my Python Stripe version. Get that string on my clipboard before it reverts me again. Oh, Blaze Devs, welcome in. Why can't I see the chat? It's empty. Who are you replying? I'm talking most of the folks are on TikTok. So are you on Twitch? Looks like, yeah. So that's the reason. Aditya on YouTube. Hey John, joined for the first time. What are we building? We are fixing a Stripe webhook, and now I am trying to do an integration test, an independent Python integration test. Expected 200, got 400. Oh no. So we failed our integration test. What's going on my server side? Toby, welcome in. If I'm not interrupting, can you please guide me if I wanted to learn to become software development in test? I think I already talked about that, right? I don't recommend it, but if you're passionate about it, we talked about the considerations there. And if you missed that, then just check out the stream. It'll be saved to YouTube and you can watch it later. Okay, so the webhook failed. Butter on rice, thanks for the follow. Jonathan, starting back my CS program at university next month. Rock on, brother. Webhook URL. Oh, hold on. I think is it calling Stripe? This is okay. It doesn't look like we're logging my secret, so I'm okay with that. It's just saying it's just going to print yes or no. Oh, these are two different values in Stripe. Interesting. Okay. Well, let me go get that value. Maybe I guess I'm just not using it at all. So I'm looking on my Stripe portal on the other browser. Webhooks. Oh, can I create an arbitrary one? I think I can create an arbitrary one. Okay, cool. All right, so let me make one up. We can do an arbitrary one. Okay, let me restart my server. I think it hot reloaded, but I'll just do it forcibly to make sure it picks up that new environment variable. Is it JavaScript? This is Python. This is a Python file. So the server is in TypeScript, but we are doing an independent integration test in Python. It's a wrap, babe. Ship it. You love the green check mark. Let me get a dub in the chat, eh? I'll take one more question. Is learning HTML and JavaScript good for front end? Absolutely. What else do you recommend learning? Two answers. One would be CSS. So the core three is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you need to learn CSS. But then I would also encourage you to follow the Laterally standard curriculum. Link is in the bio. Sign up at laterally.io. It'll walk you through projects that'll teach you these and more. It'll teach you React, Next.js, and Tailwind. Tailwind is an interesting JavaScript library that allows you to execute CSS logic in JavaScript. So you want to learn CSS, but then in many projects, you want to avoid actually touching it. And you can compile CSS from Tailwind. Jen, thanks for the W. Dinik, thanks for the follow. Chill Guy, do you ever use decision trees? Every day, my boy. Every day. Aditya, yo, GG. All right, chat. We did it, team. Over 800 likes, and we got the win. See you later.